So one of my biggest questions when I was becoming more grounded in the faith was, how do I even know that the Gospels were written by who they're written by? Who are these people? Why would I even trust them? You know, some of the common questions that you would generally have, right? And in this video, I'm going to even show you how someone can use that against Christianity. And then on the back end, I'm also going to show you a video that answers the question, and then I'll give you my input right in the back end. So let's get straight into it.
The people who wrote the Bible is Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John.
Yeah.
What are their second names? Nobody knows who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
They're anonymous people. There's no biography of them. Nobody knows their history. Who are these people?
Might even not existed.
This in itself is just so misleading because they don't have a last name. That means that nobody knows who they are and nobody can know where it came from. And that's why we're going to go into this second video.
I know Luke made Luke, John made John, Matthew made Matthew, and Mark made Matthew. How do we know?
How do we know who the authors of the New Testament documents are? Because the best evidence we have from antiquity is they are the writers of those documents. And even if they aren't, we know that there are, and I'm looking for a slide here, we know that they were certainly written by Jews in the first century. Like, for example, if you read the Gospel of Matthew, take a look at this. The best evidence we have regarding the Gospels is that these early church fathers right here, Tertullian, Clement of Alexandria, Irenaeus, this fragment that was written in about 170 AD, Justin Martyr, and Papias, all of these people confirm that the writers that we call Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John actually wrote those documents. Secondly, there's only one human link separating John from Irenaeus. That's Polycarp. So this is very close to John. Claims are from every quarter of the Roman Empire that these were the writers of these documents. There's no rival claims about authorship, and they're unlikely invention, these names. Like Luke is not a big name, right? He's not even an eyewitness. Why wouldn't you say, or Mark isn't even a big name. Why wouldn't you say it's the Gospel of Peter rather than the Gospel of Mark? I mean, if you want to get people to believe something that isn't true, you would say Peter wrote the gospel, not Mark. In fact, there's a gospel written 100 years after Peter was dead called the Gospel of Peter. And we know it wasn't written by Peter, but somebody forged.
So another great point is that he's trying to make is the choices of who wrote the Gospels proves also Gospels. You wouldn't choose these names. Like Mark was a follower, a disciple of Peter. So Mark's gospel is there, but you wouldn't choose that. And later in his video, he goes into saying that there's a Gospel of Peter, but it's fake, obviously. And Luke, why would you use a doctor's gospel? But Matthew and John were actual disciples. So if you didn't know, John made 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. So the way that they would choose the New Testament when they were compiling these books were you had to be an apostle or associated with an apostle. So that was one of those tests. So like Hebrews, Mark, and I think Revelations were on the table and were almost not put into the Bible, if I'm not mistaken, because they weren't an actual apostle. So they were the gentlemen that were compiling the Bible, the New Testament together. They were looking at it like, I don't know, but through divine inspiration and divine guidance, we got the perfect holy book, the Bible. So
put Peter's name on it to get the New Testament believers to try and think it was a true document from Peter, but we know it's written 100 years after he's dead. So it's not a very likely invention to name a gospel after Mark, who's a minor character in the book of Acts. It doesn't make any sense when you could say Peter wrote it, right? Also, there are no documents that have ever been discovered. I should say no manuscripts ever discovered where we have the title page that didn't say, this is the gospel according to Matthew. This is the gospel according to Luke. This is the gospel according to John, or Mark. So the idea that these were all anonymous is really mythological. They're not anonymous.
One point that I do want to make is the evidence for the entire New Testament is not minute. There's over 15,000 manuscripts or pieces of manuscripts. I know you heard the analogy. If you piled them up about yay high, you could put them up for a mile. And it's true. There is so much evidence for the Gospels and the writings of Paul and Peter and Revelations. There's so much of a compilation? There's so much compiled evidence for each piece of the New Testament books that it's irrefutable that they have been changed or that the authors aren't who they are, other than Hebrews, because we don't know the author of Hebrew. But there is so much evidence for them. So just in case you didn't know about that claim, if someone makes that claim, it's just irrefutable at this point to say that the Gospels have been changed or the New Testament has been changed or that something's wrong with the New Testament, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of manuscripts that say exactly what the New Testament says now all the way back then. So that's the last thing I want to say. Don't get misled. You have the information out there. Information is so easy to gather. I would say go to Christian sources if you want Christian apologists, or go to Christian sources if you want Christian apologetics to answer questions that are common. These aren't like non-common questions. So just go and look for the information yourself. Seek wisdom, because that's the best way you're going to find it. You're not going to find it from someone who obviously does not follow the Christian religion. Obviously, you're not going to find someone who's not a Christian. They're going to speak against Christianity. So go to Christian sources so you can understand. And if you have a question, don't ask the one that's not a Christian. Obviously, they're going to give you an answer from their worldview, and it's not going to align with what the Christians have. There's some truthful men and women out there that will, but to find one of those is out of this world. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much. Have a good day.